Yo, we in the building or what?
Happy 420.
Happy
420.
Had a little reason to celebrate, at least today. Some good things, some good news,
Yes.
but
Yes.
the fight continues, as you know. All right, Moya, gonna kick it off to you for a little housekeeping.
Let's do it. Show intros, show outros, voiceovers, script copy, 15 and 30-second promos. That'll be a 48 business day turnaround. Hit us up at etmmediagroup@gmail.com. That's etmmediagroup@gmail.com. Booyah. So what's up, family? What's up, Chris? What's going on in your world, bro?
What's up, man? Oh, man. Everything is good. Everything is good. How about you?
Nothing to it but to do it. About to get busy tonight, boy.
Exactly. What's up, Kim?
What's happening, Chris? You jump on any of them? You jump on any of them council calls today? Give them the business?
Not today. No, not today. I know there was a big one today. I wanted to submit comment like online because now you can submit your like public testimony comments online too, right? So there was a big Sacramento City Council meeting today around 420 cannabis. Actually, it was around cannabis. So a lot going on here in Sacramento around cannabis and cannabis equity. Shout out to the whole core program, whole cannabis equity program going on here in Sac. Let me not take us too far off. Let's get to what we got to get to.
All right, let's get into it. First, we will see what's going on in the news. And of course, the big news for today was the guilty verdict on all charges in the Derek Chauvin trial. George Floyd, I know everybody was on pins and needles for that. Say power to George Floyd, Chauvin convicted. Where things stand now, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has been convicted on all charges in the death of George Floyd. Chauvin faces up to 40 years in prison for second-degree murder, up to 25 years for third-degree murder, and up to 10 years for second-degree manslaughter. Floyd died in May 2020 after Chauvin placed his knee on Floyd's neck while he pleaded, "I can't breathe."
All right, yeah, I'll give my 2 cents, but after my brother from another mother, Chris, you want to go in, bro?
Brother, I actually want to defer to you on this one, brother. I want to hear your wisdom first, brother, please.
All right, let's do it. Well, first of all, I think it's a great step in the right direction. That's number one. So, peace out to George Floyd and Ashe. I think in Chris and Kim, please confirm. I think in about another 8 weeks, they said they're actually going to confirm the judgment, if that's correct. Ish.
The sentencing, that's what I heard.
Yeah, we're expecting the sentencing.
So.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. However, I did hear, and I'm not going to throw anybody in particular under the bus because I didn't run any clips, but sometimes when we make these little small steps, it's very interesting because it's good. At times I think that when it comes to like higher power, spirituality, that's a good thing. However, in this case, a lot of people were attributing basically the reason why George Floyd, his case, or Derek Chauvin got the basically verdict as convicted is because of higher power, God, spirituality, etc. Some people even claim that because people were out on the streets somehow, some way, that he got convicted. But let's keep it real and let's keep it a buck. The biggest reason why we got this conviction and Derek Chauvin got convicted is because that sister, and I can't remember her name, had the video on Derek Chauvin and his knee on George Floyd's neck and back. That is the reason why he got convicted, because there's so many brothers and sisters out there that don't have video that were in the same scenario that didn't get convicted. So I understand this is a good step, but we definitely need more cops having those cameras on at all times. And I know there's policies that are supposedly going to be in place on a federal level, but at the same time, we really have to think about what's really at stake here. And what's really at stake is reparations. I haven't heard anybody who's in the mainstream media, advocates, at least as far as what I've heard so far, mention reparations. I've heard a lot of, we need police reform, we need more justice, we need systemic change. But as we all know, especially us three, and hopefully people listening in the audience, at this point, the only thing that's really going to repair this society, especially Black people in America, is reparations. But I'll let y'all two, Kim and Chris, go ahead on it. Do your thing.
Kim, do you want to go ahead before I jump in?
I'll let you take it, Chris.
Sure. Yeah. So one, I want to give some context just in terms of how I sort of think about these things as one, a victim myself of this type of police maltreatment. Obviously, not to the extent of George Floyd, but as a Black man, just being alive when I've been alive, I have personal experience with, obviously interactions with law enforcement, like a lot of brothers do, right? So that's the first, and a lot of sisters too. Okay, let's keep it real, right? So that's, and sometimes things happen and then you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, or sometimes you are just the victim, right, of exploitation by the hands of law enforcement, right? So I want to put this in context in that way, and then also say that the way I look at this, and you are spot on, you Moya, to talk about this in terms of reparations, because when you say the word reparations, you automatically start to bring in the past and what we experienced as a people in the past, as those Black folks like us who descend from U.S. slavery, right? So when you look at, for example, lynchings, right? I look at what we saw with Mr. Chauvin, with Derek Chauvin, as and George Floyd, Mr. George Floyd, as an example of a public torture lynching, a kind of lynching. And it's actually a special kind of lynching. There's like not all lynchings are the same in, like, if according to the people who like study it, right? So this is a particular kind of lynching called a public torture kind of lynching in my eyes, the ones that we keep seeing on video, where the lynching is very public. It's very meant to send fear into the rest of the Black population. So I just want to put that in context in terms of so folks know where I'm coming from. Quite specifically, though, in terms of the actual verdict, I agree with the verdict. I think they got the verdict right. Guilty on all accounts. I just full disclosure, I wrote a quick story in the Elk Grove Tribune this evening covering the case. You can check it out at Elk Grove Tribune.com, and also Elk Grove Tribune on Facebook and Instagram and all that good stuff. So I personally agree with the verdict. And I do want to say lastly that we got to watch out also not to let this be used. Like, we got to put this one guilty verdict in the context of 1,000, not guilty verdicts, and 1,000 we don't even get to trial, right? We barely even get to trial on these cases. I think in the story I wrote, I think I quoted some research that said only 7 police officers since 2005 have been convicted of any murder by using like police force. So like only 7 since like, almost 20 years. Okay. So, so we have to put this in context and not let this be used, right? Because it's something about our existence here as a people where even our victories can be used against us, right? So that's the last thing I'll say. Go ahead, Kim.
I know I've been hearing, our fellow reparationist Angela Navarro saying that, dignities bring dollars. She likes to say that a lot. And as far as reparations go and this George Floyd thing, we have to keep in mind that this is all over a counterfeit $20 bill. And if, Black people weren't always perceived as, being criminals or poor, or, white guy could have passed that $20 off and nobody would have thought anything of it. So definitely. And then I saw also a statement that, they've spent millions of dollars on this trial. Oh, and not even to mention the appeals that money's going to be spent on over a counterfeit 20. So, I mean, we do need to get these socioeconomic issues under control. So that's what I'll say about that. We'll go on to our next news article. Maxine Waters says she won't be bullied by Republicans over Chauvin remarks. After Republicans launched a long-shot attempt to censor and expel Maxine Waters from Congress over comments on murder trial of Derek Chauvin, which the judge said could provide grounds for appeals, the veteran California progressives stayed defiant. Biden says of Chauvin trial, I'm praying the verdict is the right verdict. I'm not worried that they're going to continue to distort what I say, Waters 82 told the Grio. This is who they are and this is how they act, and I'm not going to be bullied by them. She spoke to the media on Saturday during a protest at Brooklyn Center in Minneapolis suburb where police shot dead a 20-year-old Black man, Dante White, earlier this month. If Chauvin was acquitted, she said, we've got to stay on the street and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business. Republicans were quick to accuse Waters of inciting violence, as they said Democrats accused Donald Trump of doing before the January 6th Capitol riot. All right. And let's see what Nancy Pelosi had to say about all this.
Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that? Call out for your mom. I can't breathe. But because of you and because of thousands, millions of people around the world who came out for justice, your name will always be synonymous with justice.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that one.
I got some thoughts.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah. So one on the what we had. So if you remember within the last, let's say, 24 hours of the actual trial itself, the defense. So so after the prosecution had rested, the defense had done its thing, right, and then. I believe the defense had rested also, but then in that interim time between when the defense rested and when there were the closing arguments or whatever, right? The defense tried to file a motion with Judge, I think his name is Judge Cahill, Judge Peter Cahill, saying, hey, we want a mistrial because of what Maxine Waters said, right? And the judge Mr. Cahill was like, Judge Cahill, was like, yeah, I think what she said was bad, but I don't think that it is going to do anything to mess up what the jury is going to do. I trust the jury, etc. And so, but we saw this we saw this come up, right? So that's the first thing. I did hear some legal experts today also on some more, I would say, conservative-ish, sort of leaning, sort of thought say that they thought that what Maxine Waters was said was grounds for a potential, appeal. And as you mentioned, Kim, there is most likely, I think there is likely going to be an appeal. That's what it sounds like, at least so far, right? So Chauvin's, lawyers are going to appeal the decision. Some folks say that what Maxine Waters said is grounds for that. I really disagree. I think I think it's kind of desperate on the part of the defense, and I think Republicans are being hypocrites for trying to compare what Maxine Waters said to what Donald Trump said. Obviously, there's a way two different things. Donald Trump was actually at a event during the time when the riots basically started. He was still at the event or whatever. And saying, let's go to the Capitol, et cetera. Okay. And saying that, that the election was stolen, et cetera. So that's very, very different from what Maxine Waters said. Obviously, Maxine Waters didn't say nothing, that I thought was inciting a riot. Okay. So Republicans need to calm down with that, extra noise. And also, let me tell you one last thing. George Floyd did not, quote, sacrifice his life. Okay.
It was a human sacrifice.
Okay, right. As in, like, willingly sacrifice his. I mean, it sounded like, and I saw some of this on Twitter. I saw some folks, I think Tim Black on Twitter was making this point too. George Floyd did not sacrifice his life as in willingly sacrifice. It's like he was murdered. Okay. That's different than willingly sacrificing your life for a particular cause, and dying in the cause of that. So that's the last thing I'll say.
And even what Maxine Waters said, how would that be grounds for a mistrial anyways? I I don't see how it even plays into that narrative.
The argument they made was that that the defense was making was that it would get into the jurors. So like the jurors would hear that in the news, which they're not supposed to be looking at the news at all. The judge told them, listen, you're not supposed to be looking at the news at all. But somehow the defense is claiming that because Maxine Waters is such a popular figure, such a national figure, when she said that the jurors would hear that in the news and they would either be like scared to like, not say he's not guilty, or or it would influence their decision in some way, right? Toward one side over the other, toward the prosecution side. That's what they were saying.
Okay. That makes sense. So what is the minimum amount of time that he can get with these 3 guilty charges on all of the counts?
I don't know the minimum. I know the maximum, and I know what the recommendations are. Or at least I know from what I understand the recommendations are. So I'm not sure what the minimums are, though, in terms of the charges that he does face now. I think and I'm actually looking at my story here. So Chauvin's guilty of second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. Second-degree murder carries a sentence of 40 years in prison. Okay, so that's a maximum, right? So that's the most serious one, right? The second-degree murder. Third-degree murder has a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison, right? And the manslaughter charge has a maximum of 10 years in prison. Chauvin is 45 right now. So I think he faces as much as 40 years or so. And that's because of so you have the sentence maximums. I don't know about the minimums, but you have the sentence maximums, and then you have the recommendations, right? And there's a process, from what I understand, there's a process that the court and the judge will go through to determine what's the appropriate sentence. Because right, maybe the maximum is not the right sentence for him, right? Maybe the minimum is not the right sentence if there is one, right?
Okay, I was
So,
just wondering if there was some slap on the wrist type maneuver that we should be
um,
concerned about.
so I think from what I heard about the recommendations, we should be expecting something like 12 and a half years per charge. Okay, except for the last one, I believe, which is the 10-year charge, and I'm not sure how they deal with that one. So I would be expecting, something like that. But the judge has options. Also, they said to run his sentences concurrently, or I forget what's the other one. Or consecutively, rather. So back to back versus at the same time. Um, so yeah, so he's 45 now. He's gonna do some time for sure, and we'll see how much he does. And like you said earlier, Kim, I think you more said also we'll know in about 2 weeks. Oh, sorry, not 2 weeks. 8 weeks, right? So 2 months.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll see. And in other news, Yumoya.
All right. So our brother Mumia Abu Jamal is awaiting heart surgery, unfortunately, after battling COVID-19. Imprisoned journalist Mumia Abu Jamal was rushed to the hospital for heart surgery on Thursday following chest pains he was experiencing, Democracy Now! Reports. Just last month, Abu Jamal supporters rallied outside the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office demanding Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf release the 66-year-old and all incarcerated people over the age of 50 amid the ongoing COVID health crisis. Quote, "We are holding a population captive in prisons that the prisons cannot protect," end quote, said Joanna Fernandez, an advocate of Abu Jamal and history professor at Baruch College in New York. Abu Jamal has been in prison serving out a life sentence for murdering a police officer in 1981. The award-winning radio journalist was originally sentenced to death in 1982, but garnered up a loyal support group over the decades through his coverage on the flawed U.S. criminal system in the United States. In 2011, a number of appeals helped overturn his death penalty sentence to a sentence of life imprisonment without parole. So, we wish that brother good blessings, and, hopefully everything's well with him in his surgery.
Definitely.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. In some financial news here, 36 civil rights organizations urge Biden to cancel $50,000 in student debt per borrower. The American student debt problem encompasses 45 million people with combined 1.7 trillion of debt, and much of the burden falls on communities of color. Civil rights organization want President Joe Biden to change that by canceling 50,000 in student debt per person. On Monday, 36 civil rights organizations led by the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights released civil rights principles for student debt cancellation in an effort to encourage Biden administration to act on racial, gender, disability, and wealth disparities in the country. They said these disparities have left borrowers on the brink of financial devastation simply because they sought a higher education, and the only solution is to cancel 50,000 in student debt per person. The letter, which was also signed by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, and the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, outlined 5 principles that student debt cancellation should abide by. Debt cancellation should extend to all borrowers, including those with private loans. Debt cancellation should extend to all sectors of institutions, including public, private, and for-profit schools. The debt cancellation process must be easy to navigate. If it's too difficult, many borrowers will not be able to achieve relief. Debt cancellation should not negatively impact borrowers' credit scores. Debt cancellation should come with policies to increase access to affordability in the U.S. higher education system. The letter noted that upon graduation, Black borrowers typically owe 50% more than white borrowers, and 4 years later, Black borrowers owe 100% more. Canceling $50,000 per borrower would eliminate student debt for 75% of all federal borrowers, including full cancellation for 85% of Black borrowers and 96% of Latino borrowers in the lowest income. Biden has asked the Justice Department and Education Department to review his ability to use executive powers to cancel $50,000 in student debt per person. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says in early April that Biden has not ruled out canceling that amount, although Biden has said in February that he will not make that happen. But Democratic lawmakers like Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts remain adamant that Biden can and must use his executive powers to cancel $50,000 in student loan per person.
All right. Can I jump in on this?
Sure.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, and I'm trying to take some notes here at the same time, just so I keep track of my thoughts. I think it's interesting. First of all, I think it's interesting to say that to just the idea here that the president can cancel this debt without any Congress or anything at all. I think that's interesting to think about. I had not thought. This is the first time that I've seen people and seen the president himself actually, a president say, "Hey, they can like cancel, student debt, just from their office itself." I know the Department of Education is a federal, office, right? And there's a Secretary of Education, obviously, right? But so first of all, that's the first thing to say. Second thing is, I think this is misguided, obviously. And I'm saying that from the perspective of I value policies that do collective uplift, meaning that bring up the majority of Black folks. Okay, like bring up more Black folks than not. Okay, right. So because we know that Black folks go to college and graduate college, and and Black folks here, I'm talking specifically Black folks who are native to this country, who descend from U.S. slavery, right? Specifically, our college graduation rates are somewhere probably around 1 in 5, maybe 20%, probably less, right? So a lower, and that's compared to something like, I don't know what 30% or something like that for white folks, higher for other groups than that, right? So we are going to college and graduating less. So something like this helps a small, not insignificant, not negligible, but definitely not the majority of Black folks, right? Secondly, this does not close the wealth gap, right? And this has the potential to actually increase the wealth gap, primarily because, and this is based, there's research that supports this. There's at least 2 research papers that I've read personally that support this claim, the claims that I'm making, that this policy in particular does not close the racial wealth gap, and actually could potentially increase it if, for example, let's say it's not means tested, right? Because there are a lot of people with a lot of different kinds of incomes and wealth go to college, right? So if this applies to folks with high incomes also, right, then they're gonna be, that's great for them, right? And if they go to college more, then that's great for them too, right? So like it's even better. So that's the other thing I want to say. And then, I think so. the story says that these are 36 like civil rights organizations, right? Or something like that, right?
Yes, that's what
So
it
these are
said.
supposed to be, so like that's code word for like black organizations, right? Or like black targeted or black led or black owned or not, right?
Right. We see
Okay.
they mentioned the NAACP right
Yeah,
there at the
right,
top.
right. So why are black folks, and I'm gonna call that group of organizations black folks. Why are black folks supporting something, writing a letter to Joe Biden for 20% of our black population or less? That is, one, I think a lot of that 20% is probably represented in that group of black folks, right? Those are a lot of the black folks who go to college, who have kids who are in college right now, who have kids who are in college or going to college, who this would really help them, right? So if we have to look at black wealth, how it's distributed across and income, how it's distributed across our people. 75% of the wealth in the black community is like in the top 10% of black folks, right? That a lot of those black folks are the black folks who wrote some of those letters, right? That's the
So
first thing.
another self-serving grift. And
I don't know if it's a grift, but I mean, but I would say it's acting in your own financial interests, right? Now, whether that is good for the rest of us and good for me and you, we can talk. Well, that's a different question. But I don't know if it's a grift, as in like a scheme or something. But and this also may be a part of the coalition work that they're doing, right? So like these groups are obviously in these broader progressive left coalitions, right? So they may be doing a favor and saying, so someone may have sent an email or memo and say, hey, listen, the whole progressive movement is going to push for Biden to do the, cancel the debt. Here's your part, black people, right? Right. Write us
have
a
we
letter.
seen this type of energy from the NAACP on reparations?
I don't think we've seen. So I guess you could say, yeah, because they are on a so there is support for from about 300 organizations for HR 40. There is a letter of support for about 300 and the NAACP is on there. They're not leading that, I don't think. And I know that the ACLU led an effort, last year, right? And the last thing I want to say on this is that I always wondered, so like I have college debt still, right? So like I wonder, like, does it apply to like debt that's like colleges often sell their debt to collectors too, right? So like, does it apply to that too, right? Or is it just debt that's still held by the original party? So anyway.
That's a good question. All right. So we'll go on to the next financial news piece. Moya, if you want to fill us in.
Let's do it. Dow drops 250 points, led by Boeing and Nike. Nasdaq falls another 1%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 250 points as Boeing and Nike both dropped more than 4%. The S&P 500 lost nearly 1%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite dipped 1.1%. Reopening plays such as airlines and cruise line operators led losses on Tuesday. United Airlines plunged 9% after the carrier reported its fifth consecutive quarterly loss and said that business and international travel recovery is still far off. American Airlines fell 6%, while Carnival, Norwegian Cruise Line, and Royal Caribbean all traded about 4% lower.
Okay. Let's see what's going on with coronavirus news. Newly reported U.S. coronavirus cases fall. Newly reported coronavirus cases in the U.S. fell as the global COVID-19 death toll surpassed 3 million. The U.S. reported more than 60,000 new cases for Saturday, according to the latest data compiled by Johns Hopkins University that was published early Sunday. The data may update later. Saturday's tally was down from 79,991 cases reported for Friday, according to Johns Hopkins data. Daily cases tally are often lower on weekends and early in the week due to lower levels of testing. Not all states report data on new cases daily. The 7-day case average, which helps smooth out differences in data reporting, was 70,097 for Friday, while the 14-day average was 68,897, according to Wall Street Journal analysts of Johns Hopkins data. When the 7-day average is higher than the 14-day, it indicates cases are rising. The country reported 671 COVID-19 fatalities for Saturday as the death toll approached 567,000. According to Johns Hopkins data, worldwide, more than 3 million people have died from COVID-19 since the beginning of the pandemic. The U.S. administered an average of 3.2 million doses a day over the past week. According to Wall Street Journal analysis of CDC data, and 24.8% of Americans are now fully vaccinated, while 39% have received at least one dose of the vaccine. Vaccination levels vary by state. In New Hampshire, 58% of residents have received at least one shot, while in Mississippi, the figure is 28.9%.
Real quick on this. So yes, that it's just in terms of the numbers and the statistics and all that stuff, right? Some of that might go over people's heads, but really the main point there is that you don't want to look at the new cases on a day-to-day basis, because they will be changing a lot because of the differences and how different states and different places, when they collect, data on the number of cases is different for different places, right? So that's going to make the numbers different. So yes, you want to use the 7-day average, and also the 14-day averages, obviously, as well. Right now, we're at a place, I think, of where like it's almost like a confusing kind of place almost, right? Because on the one hand, the vaccine is well, one, we also have to talk about the Johnson & Johnson case, right, which is an issue right now, right? But I think 1 and 2 of every adult American has had at least one type 1 dose of the vaccine already. And so on the one hand, and then also, it looks like, it looked for a while like cases were going down, right? But then they started to plateau, right? But that reality of cases combined with, I think, the vaccine coming on board, combined with folks really just being tired and of living the lockdown life, plus the new season changing into the warmer weather, plus the stimulus checks, right? I think we have a combination of forces, plus the political, this whole pandemic is political, right? So plus all of the self-interested things that people have done in this pandemic, right? To politically, and I'm talking about elected officials, right? I think we're in a weird place, and I, again, on the one hand, there is positive signs. On the other hand, there are some pretty negative signs. I think globally too, right? We're at some of the worst cases and numbers globally since the start of this thing. Here in the U.S., we look better, largely because of what we've done with the vaccine. But we have, over the last 2 weeks or so, have had places in our country where there have been spikes, right? With some really bad spikes. I think Michigan, has been one place that people have called attention to. I think something like over a dozen different states had cases on the rise. So,
well, how do you explain Texas? I mean, when they abandoned their mask mandates, they seem to have drops in COVID.
So Texas has had ups and downs, right? Because I remember when Texas had lifted their lockdowns and then had to relock themselves down, way back sometime in early 2020, for moving a little bit too early. I think probably in the summer of 2020 for moving a little bit too early. Texas has had ups and downs. I think they've done not very much better or worse than other places. But I think Texas has had its ups and downs. Florida is another case too, right? That people point to where the governor Ron DeSantis of Florida has been he's one of these Republicans who is like, hey, we need to have our economy open, and we don't need to be too restrictive, et cetera, with the mask, et cetera. So but my cases in Florida have gone up and down too. So the point of all this is that we're not out of the woods yet, right? We're not out of the woods yet. And then when you have things like the Johnson & Johnson case with the vaccine, or the AstraZeneca case, which was last week, AstraZeneca, I don't think is approved here in the U.S., but it's approved, overseas and in England, and that was paused, I think, 2 weeks ago, and then we have the Johnson & Johnson pause. I know there was supposed to be some news on Johnson & Johnson, I think, today. I'm not up to speed on the news. So if anybody has the news on Johnson & Johnson today, please feel free to share that.
I'm not up to date on the news. I know that they were having the issues with the blood clotting, and that they've taken it off the market, right? As far as I know, until they can figure that out. But what about the okey doke that Pfizer pulled on everybody? I mean, at first it's 2 shots. Now it's after you get your 2 shots, you got to get a shot in 6 months, and then annually thereafter.
Well, I'm not sure. Well, for which particular brand, and actually, I'm looking at some news now for Johnson & Johnson. I just pulled it up. They have been allowed to resume their rollout in Europe, with a warning. So Johnson & Johnson is back in business in Europe, at least. We'll see where they go, here in the U.S. But if it's I think that's a sign that it's going to get back here also. So and also we have to say one thing too. This virus is changing itself, right? The virus itself keeps changing and keeps mutating, right? And so there are all these different strains now, right? And most of them seem to be still impacted by the vaccine, right? But whether that's going to be the case, in however long, who knows? And Kim, you're talking about having to get more shots now, right? So if you think of people don't like to compare this to the flu. It's definitely not the flu, but if you think about how you get a flu shot, or potentially could get a flu shot every year, right? Maybe we should be expecting something more along those lines. And also remember that not 100% of the population needs to get the vaccine in order for the virus to be sort of under control, right? I think it's 75, 80%. So
yeah, and with the numbers we just read, should be there soon. They said 4 or something like that have gotten both shots already, and then another 58% or so have at least gotten one shot. So we will keep monitoring that.
Has anyone here got the shot yet?
Yes, I did.
There we go. There we
I got the
go.
Pfizer, yeah. So I got the one. Yeah, and I got to go back to get it in like, I don't know, a couple weeks from now, whatever the time is. I don't remember, but yeah. I mean, look, if people want to get it, that's up to them. If people don't want to get it, that's their constitutional right not to get it. I do want to say though, what's even more important is your immune system. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna try to get a good brother, Kidi Awadu, who's really up on the information, back on the program to speak about the information and see what we can discover from that conversation. Because yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I rarely hear the CDC actually speaking and talking about what we need to do in terms of the immune system in itself, like your holistic way that you live, because with all the so-called comorbidities that are out there, that's really the biggest issue with this coronavirus, is that people get the shot but they're still smoking, people getting the shot and they're still eating all kind of crazy stuff, people getting the shot still got asthma, people getting the shot. And so I think we just have to look at this a little bit differently. And see what the science says. But at the end of the day, people have to really hone in and pay attention to their health, because that's, you can get all the vaccines you want, but if you're not honed in and concentrated on trying to live more of a holistic life and a better life, then those shots aren't going to do anything for you.
Yeah,
that's just my
sounds like it's just going to be touch and go. We just need to, keep monitoring for the latest information as it relates to COVID. All right. In other news, we've got Google, who honored Luther Vandross with a doodle on his 70th birthday. Is that today? Yeah, April 20. I didn't see it. I'll have to go see if I can catch it. Google is paying tribute to legendary singer Luther Vandross on what would have been his 70th birthday. On Tuesday, Google released its latest doodle, an animated video honoring Vandross, set to one of his most popular songs, Never Too Much. Vandross was born on April 20th, 1951 in New York City, according to a biography posted by Google. One of his early breaks came after his original composition, Everybody Rejoice, which was used in the musical Broadway The Wiz. He would later work with artists including David Bowie, Ringo Starr, and Whitney Houston. In 1981, Vandross released his first album, Never Too Much, one of 14 albums that went platinum or multi-platinum. Vandross was also nominated for Grammys 33 times, winning 8.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Luther. Rest in peace.
Yes.
Yes.
Power. What's up, Luther?
That's
Never
right.
too much. Never too much. I don't want to sing it because we might get a copyright strike.
All right. And what's going on here, Moya, with this vegan burger?
This is right down my alley. So let's go do this. Black-owned vegan burger brand lands $300,000 investment on Shark Tank, reached six-figure revenues within 24 hours. You guys heard it on Shark Tank. All 5 sharks shared that this is the best plant-based burger they've ever had on the February 26th episode of Shark Tank. Everything Legendary, which is the company name, specializes in plant-based, gluten-free, and soy-free food. Customers will also enjoy a combination of hemp protein, beet extract, potato starch, and coconut oil. Mark Cuban's support of the brand has helped the Washington, D.C. based company reach new customers in a short period of time. The company is currently shipping products nationwide and has already reduced shipping expenses by increasing the number of patties per package. Everything Legendary founders offered the Sharks a $300,000 investment opportunity in exchange for 10% of her company. They ultimately landed a deal with billionaire investor Mark Cuban, walking away with a $300,000 investment in exchange for 22% equity. That is wonderful. See, it's just, when we get the opportunity, the things that we can do. Just imagine if brothers and sisters actually got their reparations.
Yeah, that's like, yeah, man, that's congratulations to them. They're right on time too. I think I'm going the vegan route. I tried it a few times, and I like the holidays a little bit too much. You know, you know what I mean. But I think, to today, actually, I said to myself, I think I'm going back to vegan route just because, it just feels right for me right now, at least. So they're right on time. I want to see if I could get some of their great vegan food, and shout out to them. For getting that big capital infusion, right? The lack of capital, right? Like uh, being in business is expensive, and people don't really always think about that. But being in business is expensive because you have to be able to go periods of time when you're putting in more money than you're making, right? And you're right. So like you have to be able to have what they call like sustaining capital, like capital to sustain your business, right? You also have to have capital to just like start up. So you have to have like startup capital, right? And then you have to have what they call like runway capital, right? To take you from a startup to like take you into the air, right? Take you like on a path up as a business. The kind of capital that, and I'm talking about the 300 grand, and what I'm assuming is some sort of cash or some sort of cash equivalent for in exchange for 20% equity in the company, right? That's what it sounded like. The 22%, right? Excuse me. People normally get the kind of cash they need for their business from their home, from some sort of banking, banker or bank, from family and friends, from stuff they've accumulated in their own savings as much as they could, right? So having someone to come in and who is sort of like an angel investor and put money in is always going to help. But this is something that we could be doing for ourselves more often. I got love for Mark Cuban, but I would rather be putting that 300 grand in a business that is black owned and that is doing this amazing vegan food, and that's what reparations will help make happen, right? Obviously, that's something that I want to do anyway. So I'm going to make it happen, but that's something that definitely reparations would help make happen. And there is, last thing I'll say too. Shout out to I think it's Good Vibes Vegan Cafe or Good Roots Vegan Cafe, black owned here in Sacramento. Vegan food. I think they are doing I think delivery only right now, but they're based here in Midtown. I want to shout them out. They make some amazing vegan food. It's a black owned spot too. So if you want to support a black owned vegan spot, you can support one right here in the Sacramento area too.
I was going to ask if they had a brick and mortar, but you said that they're doing delivery only right now. Did they have a storefront at one point?
They have a store where I think they run their business out of. But I don't think they're taking any seating right now. I'm assuming that's because of the COVID stuff. I did see some seating like on their website, so I'm assuming they do have seating there. But it's right here on 24th Street, 24th and like J or something.
All right, and just to let the family know and the audience know that I believe who's the group, the Everlight. I need to go back to the slide here. Just want to make sure that I'm getting their names correct.
Everything Legendary?
Yes, Everything Legendary. Yes. Everything Legendary. Yes, family. They have not endorsed this show. They are not a sponsor of the show, so we just
Not
want
yet, but if they want to send a check,
Hey.
I'll let you know where to mail it out.
and some patties and some patties.
Yeah, but we support our Black-owned
Speaking
businesses here. You know that, so we always show love to our Black-owned business. We've been doing that since day one.
For sure.
Right on. All right. So speaking of reparations, there was some reparations news within the last week. On Wednesday, April 14th, markup session in the House Judiciary. Let's take a recap at what some of the Congress had to say on behalf of reparations. Before we do that, let's take a quick look at this video from CNN.
The House Judiciary Committee voted late last night to advance a bill that, if passed by the House, would create a commission to study reparations for Black Americans that were the descendants of slaves in this country. This bill would specifically examine slavery and discrimination in the colonies and the United States from 1619 to the present and recommend the appropriate remedies. This bill was actually introduced in 1989, but this is the first time that it's advanced out of committee and will be put to a full House vote. And of course, this comes as the racial injustice protests of 2020 really show that this has given this reparations movement new wind, which is why Democrats have taken this action in the House, in Congress. But I want to emphasize that the likelihood of this passing through the Senate is very slim, very low. It's unlikely that they will get 60 votes to break a filibuster if this reaches the Senate for this to pass. So even though this advanced out of committee, it's likely not going to pass through Congress because Republicans are against this measure. Christine.
There you go. Before we actually start going in, family, it is almost an hour into the show. And I know next week we're actually going to break down some of the markups and changes in HR 40. Now, we do have a couple of highlighted videos from the Judiciary Committee last week that we wanted to play. But I don't know how you two feel, but maybe we should table that and maybe show some of those videos next week if you guys are down.
Yeah.
You guys down with that? But we should at least in the interim let the family know who actually voted for the HR 40 in the House Judiciary. Kim, do we have that? Yeah, still up. Okay, so here we go, family. As you could see it, predominantly most of the Democrats in green basically voted aye for HR 40, and the Republicans, including the one and only Burgess Owens, voted no for HR 40. So we won't get too in depth into the markups because Chris, I don't think it's up on the website officially yet, and two, we definitely want to go through it. But Chris, the political GOAT, let us know how you feel about this and what you think about it. And Kim, obviously, you can come through as well.
Yeah. So I want to respond to the video to the news clip that we just played, and what I want to agree with the thrust of one of the things that the reporter said. This is a part of my observations about last week, which was a historic week, right? I think that was one of the big takeaways from last week, that this was a historic week for Black people. We really haven't seen and been this close to at least some form of reparations since the Civil War. Okay. The fact that bill made it out of committee and is now moving forward, this is the first ever. Okay, so this was a historic week. This was a movement week for Black people, period, in general. Really, no matter where you fall on your relationship or your thinking about HR 40, all right? And so I think we as a people first need to, like, and I don't think we really, thought about it like that last week, because I know we had a lot going on last week. But really, that's true. Okay. Second thing is, and I'll say this really quickly, that I want to give a big shout out to the Fix HR 40 campaign staff and volunteers who were running the call to action last week, making sure that Congress heard our voice in the halls of Congress last week, which is what happened last week. So I want to give a big shout out to everybody who worked on that particular call to action last week. And I'll say too that I thought the Republican behavior last week during the hearings was at times disrespectful, really trying to take the issue, and turn it to be about the courts, court packing, as opposed to something that's so important and so serious as, what we're talking about. I thought that was an effort to trivialize, us. And I thought that was disrespectful. I would rather you fight me, than act like I'm not even there. Right. So, like, if you're going to come with your Burgess Owens, come with that, but don't try to take the conversation to some other nonsense. Right. I thought that was disrespectful, and that they owed us as a people better, just as Americans. Right. And then I thought the Democrats did better in terms of their defense. Not perfect, but definitely better than they did at the last hearings. And then they actually scored some points here and there too, actually. So I thought that was it. Let me say last thing and I know we're gonna talk about this next week, right? We're gonna break this down. So make sure, folks, you join us next week. We're gonna break down the actual markups and changes to the bill, and talk more specifically about what is going on with the bill and what happens next. Practically speaking, what happens next, right, is the bill is headed to the floor of the House of Representatives, where all 435 members of the House will have a chance to vote on the bill, and the Democrats control the House right now. When that's going to happen, we don't know yet. We're hearing rumors, about when it's going to be, sometime toward the middle of the year. So that's really when the next, big call to action is. There'll be a bunch of call to actions in between now and then, right? But the big call to actions are going to happen around the bill going to the House floor. So what's happening between now and then is negotiations about potential amendments to the bill on the actual House floor, right? And whether or not they'll be taking amendments on the House floor, or whether or not there'll have to be some other opportunity later on down the line to take amendments if on the House side. So let me stop there, because I was getting ready to go super in, because there's a lot to go into here. But just take a pause, y'all. We are, and every single one of us is a part of this. Like, it's this generation. I'm calling us the reparations generation, because we come from all kind of generations, but we have moved the ball forward. Okay. So one way or another, the people who come after us to pick up this effort are going to have the ball moved further than where we got it. And again, that's regardless of where you come out on the actual, merits and language around the bill itself. Trust me, I can't wait, to see what a potential commission could come up with our help, right? So, plus we're going to have a lot of great practice and build a lot of great, street cred from our work here in California and what we're doing on the statewide bill, right? So we're putting ourselves, we're exactly where we need to be right now, in terms of our work our group's work on the national reparations effort and also on the state and local reparations effort. We're exactly where we need to be. This was a historic week, and we all should be proud of ourselves.
Definitely proud of the work everybody's doing. And Chris, what did you if anything, have to say about what the reporter said on our Senate challenge, and how should we prepare for that?
Yes. So the campaign to fix HR 40 is evolving, and the campaign is evolving because of changing conditions on the ground, right? Obviously, we have been, if you've been following the campaign, you'll know that we have had our eye on the Senate for a while now, since last year, really. And the reporter is absolutely right about the sort of expectations, right? She was right in talking about what like the expectations are, right? She wasn't saying that like this is certain to happen. It's absolutely gonna fail. It's absolutely, she doesn't know that, right? She doesn't know us, right? She doesn't know what we're capable of. So she's saying, here's what's expected. Obviously, there's an X factor, which is us, but she's saying here's what's expected, and she's right in saying in terms of what we should expect, except for the fact that she doesn't know that there's a thing called us right here, right? Who are like, you know, really good at what we're doing. So she's absolutely right. But you know, I say the campaign is evolving because our campaign really is about improving reparations legislation and making sure that reparations legislation is right. Okay, in our eyes, right. So that means reparation legislation wherever it is, really, in the House, in the Senate, right, somewhere else. Okay, we will be successful in the Senate as well. I am 100% confident about that. Is it this exact current Senate and with its current makeup? We'll see. You know, we change senators probably next year, right? Next year we have, I think, a third of the Senate is up, if I'm not mistaken. So and we changed the House too, and right now the House is almost tied, and the Senate is tied, 50-50. Okay, with Kamala has to do all the vote sort of splitting.
So if there's a tie, it goes to Kamala.
Mm-hmm. Yep, she's the president of the Senate. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think there was a question in the chat, and peace out to brother Mark for throwing in this question.
Hey.
But we should definitely, actually start. And I don't know if we want to have a program actually talking about strategy for 2022 that's coming right around the corner as we speak. So, maybe we should have an offline conversation in terms of what, our advocacy groups are doing, and then, bring it to the family in terms of, how we should move from here until 2022.
Yeah, for sure. But we should also definitely do just hey y'all, these are the races coming up in 2022. This is this sort of the basic political information, and we should do that sooner rather than later. We should probably do at least one of those shows. If not, this month is we're almost out, but definitely sometime in May, at least one show where we're talking about this. Particularly just what's coming up, right? The whole House is up for re-election in 2022, like every 2 years, all 435 of them, a third of the Senate. There are 100 senators. Here in California, we can talk about what's going on here. So yeah, we should definitely do at least one of those, and then we can talk, like the more strategy stuff too. As long as we keep the information safe, right?
All right. So quick, brother Mark says, will Kamala have any connection to steering this? I think you indirectly answered this question if it gets down to her, but is there anything specifically in terms of Kamala being connected to, the reparations cause?
if in some way the bill, so we have to assume that the bill goes to the House floor and gets approved by the House, then gets to the Senate, then goes through the Senate committee process, gets out of the committee in the Senate, then goes to any other committee that it may have to go to, then goes to the floor of the Senate, and then gets past a filibuster, meaning it is able to get to an actual vote. Because in the Senate, it's weird. You have to vote to vote. Okay. All right. Okay. You know, so Senate has weird rules. So it would have to make it this far and then somehow be subjected to just a simple majority vote, in which if it's the current Congress, and then all Democrats would have to say yes. That includes right now, not even all Democrats in the House are on the bill. Most are, but not all of them. Okay. In the Senate, you couldn't have not one really Democrat say no. Really not one. You have to have all 50 Democrats say yes. You have to be perfect. And then you have to have all 50 Republicans say no. And then Kamala would have to come in, and then that's how Kamala gets involved. All right. At least that's one way. All right. I know it's kind of complicated. I'm just sort of thinking it through. But that's one way in which Kamala could get involved. And I'm not even sure if all those things match.
Okay. Well, wherever this bill goes, we will be following and keeping track of it. And
yeah. Now, so last thing, she can help make the bill go forward in the Senate. That she can do that. She can be making phone calls and talking to her Senate colleagues or her former Senate colleagues and people in talking to her company, because she is one of the she was one of the co-sponsors and co-signers on the bill, right? So and she was one of the first too. And I remember, and I want to give a shout out to Tiffany here in California, CJEC, Tiffany, Coalition for Just and Equitable California, and Mikaeli, who was here in Sacramento, amazing advocate also here. We were fortunate enough to have conversations with Senator Harris's staff about supporting what was then S1083, which eventually became S40, which is the Senate bill, right, to study and develop reparations. It's the carbon copy of HR 40, just in the Senate. We sat with Senator Harris's staff at least once or twice to talk about her getting on board with S1083 with the reparations effort. And eventually she did. So I want to give a shout out to those advocates who put the time and energy and effort, really to sweat equity in. Yeah.
All right. There you go. I think that's pretty much wrapped up for this evening. Yeah, family?
Wrap it up.
I think so. Yeah, that's a lot. But we'll definitely be watching. We'll be following Fix HR 40 to see what kind of strategies are out there for this evolving campaign. And yeah, if there's not anything else, we'll just say peace, love, and reparations.
Yes.
Languishing in the halls of Congress for over 30 years, H.R. 40, the Federal Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act, received a long overdue revival. Wednesday, April 14, 2021, the House Judiciary Committee voted 25-17 to advance the bill for a full House vote. Once H.R. 40 clears the full House hurdle, this historic measure will move forward to an evenly divided Senate vote. In order for our nation to truly heal, America must confirm complicity for original slavery sins and commit to clear this drastically delinquent debt through meaningful and monetary redress, reparations. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell.